Morgan Rogers to Chelsea for £117 million has to take the absolute biscuit. Where has this come from? Absolute scenes here. I mean, I don't know that we've had a transfer in the Premier League that's been this shocking. This is incredible. Even more incredible because Chelsea aren't even in Europe. Even more incredible because we're led to believe that Chelsea have financial issues. Even more incredible because we know that Arsenal wanted Morgan Rogers and he wants Chelsea. I am speechless on this one. I think it's absolutely stunning. David Ornstein dropping it a few minutes ago. Here we go from Fabrizio Romano, not far after. Basically, agreement done. Personal terms done. Deal done. 117 million proposal. And he will go to Chelsea from Aston Villa. I mean, get in the comments. Tell me your thoughts on this.
And we start with a story regarding Morgan Rogers, guys, because it's a big story of the day, an incredible story. A big hijack by Chelsea. I would describe it as a pre-hijack. Why? Because the situation of Morgan Rogers has been clear for some weeks now, since the end of May, beginning of June, when there have been several conversations. And so they started the deal for Morgan Rogers. Arsenal were in very advanced talks with the player. There were meetings between Arsenal and the player representatives, several meetings. The player was also involved in some direct meetings. So Arsenal were going all in terms of contract, and the personal terms were not a problem. Morgan Rogers was open to that. There was some tactical kind of doubt on player side, but never financial. The contract was always ready and almost agreed. Then the plan at Arsenal was, after signing Christos Tzolis to replace Leandro Trossard from next week, when the player returns from the World Cup, to meet Aston Villa and try get a deal done for Morgan Rogers. Let me tell you, Arsenal were never going to offer 117, 120, 130 million pounds. For Arsenal, the realistic value of the player was around 90, 100 maximum million pounds, no more than this, but they wanted to start a conversation from next week. What happened in the last 24 hours is that Chelsea entered the deal in a very strong way. Chelsea had a direct meeting with Aston Villa. This direct meeting was very direct, very strong by Chelsea, because they wanted to close the deal immediately. Chelsea arrived with the idea to get the player, not to start a negotiation. And so, why I say a pre-hijack? Because it's preparing what was going to happen with Arsenal. So officially Arsenal didn't bid, but Arsenal were going to bid. That's the situation. And Chelsea have been very aggressive, ready to pay 117 million pounds, a very big fee for Morgan Rogers, and then also to give the player a 6-year deal with an option for further season, higher number compared to what Arsenal wanted to offer, but also the intention to involve Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso was calling Morgan Rogers. Xabi Alonso was involved in the direct conversations with the player. And so Chelsea were very fast to close everything immediately and to get Morgan Rogers to the club. So the deal is done. We can say that everything is in place. The player will be in London next week, beginning of next week. From Monday, the process will start for medical test and contract signing. And so huge bomba. Chelsea sign Morgan Rogers. And let me mention also that the situation could now impact the wingers market and the strikers market in general in different ways, because there is going to be movement. There is going to be movement on several players, there is going to be movement, and there is going to be consequences on this. I told you this week, in the recent days, Aston Villa are trying to work and get a new winger because the expectation is for Morgan Rogers to go. And that's what happened. They expected Arsenal to be the club, then Chelsea arrived and they sold the player in 24 hours. But it's also important to mention that Aston Villa are still looking for wingers. For example, I'm told that one of the point of conversations with Chelsea was also about Alejandro Garnacho, but at the moment the priority for Garnacho is to explore different possibilities. So at this moment, Aston Villa Garnacho is not something concrete, but was one of the point of discussions during the meeting. Garnacho has an offer from Roma in Italy, and Roma are going very big for him, so we have to understand what happens there.
An incredible summer transfer window when you think about what Tottenham did, getting Tonali and Mateus Fernandes with no Champions League football. You've now got Chelsea doing exactly the same. There was interest from Arsenal, but the 23-year-old attacker wanted Chelsea. Xabi Alonso instrumental. I mean, what is the Premier League cooking up this season as well? You know, if if the Premier League adopts the World Cup refereeing, where we get rid of all the pushing and shoving and the long throw-ins and the game's allowed to flow, and then you've got teams like Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Tottenham, maybe even Villa trying to attack the Arsenals and the Man Cities, it could be an incredible Premier League season. It really could, because, I mean, this is not the sort of deal that should happen. I don't know how Chelsea are funding this. You know what? I got told... I have to say this here. I haven't said it on the United Stand. I got a message, and if it happens, I will shout the person out. I got a message about 3 weeks ago saying, watch out for Cole Palmer to Manchester United. Now, I don't know whether this has any connections with it or that person was just pissed. But I'm almost like, is there anything in that then? Where does Morgan Rogers fit into a Chelsea side? Because he's better central. He literally plays in Cole Palmer's position. Yeah, but I'm stunned. I mean, I would imagine Arsenal didn't want to go that high, which is, probably not a bad thing. I think 20% of it goes to Middlesbrough as well. But there's, if Morgan Rogers for £117 million is even worth it. Well, who's worth what? I mean, the question a few weeks ago was, is Elliot Anderson worth £116 million? Last summer was Verts worth 100 and whatever. The reality is the price, the market is inflated. But I was talking about this on That's Football earlier. Tottenham spend 90 on Tonali, but then sell Bergvall for 50. Man City sign Elliot Anderson for 116, but then sell Savinho for 70. Chelsea sign Rodgers for 117, but then sell Santos for 50. There is context to what all these clubs are doing, because they're overpaying on their incomings, but they're overselling on their sales as well. So it's just incredible. I'm very rarely shocked. I suppose I should talk about whether the deal's actually worth it. Look, I think Morgan Rogers is a good player. I really do. I think he is a good player. It's slightly surprising that he's leaving a Champions League club to go to Chelsea. That has shocked me. I mean, if he's a lifelong Chelsea fan, I don't know, but that really does surprise me. I don't think Chelsea are in Europe at all. So, I mean, who knows what the motivation of individual players are. But if I've just come off a World Cup where I didn't play that much, I'd be looking forward to a domestic season playing in the Champions League as well. So to go to Chelsea... it shows incredible ambition on Chelsea's part, by the way. It really does. I don't know whether this means Enzo Fernandez is going, because it covers off that. But, he is an experienced Premier League player, and I think Chelsea need experience. I think he's definitely better than the likes of Garnacho, who they need to move on. He definitely does improve Chelsea. And the market Chelsea are operating in without Champions League football, where do you find a player of that quality? So maybe you do need to overplay a little bit to get a player of that quality. And this is a player that Arsenal were looking at. So from Chelsea's point of view, I think it's a good signing. It's very, very expensive, but, everyone's going to go on about that. I actually agree with Arsenal not following through, by the way. Not because Chelsea have been robbed, but I think when you're Arsenal, you need to spend £117 million on Morgan Rogers, to which the answer probably is no. I think there are maybe options out there that Arsenal could go for. For example, I'd go and get Nusa from RB Leipzig for half the price, because he's a proper left winger. So I think Arsenal can probably go and get better value for a player that, they don't need to spend 117 million on. Chelsea need to make statements because they need to bounce back. But beyond the shock, and why Morgan Rogers would want Chelsea, I don't know. Maybe it is the project. But beyond the shock, I think Aston Villa have made a very, very, very decent profit on Morgan Rogers. I think Chelsea have made a very, very good signing. And I think that this market is incredible, and there is still 6 weeks of it left. And who knows what's coming next. I also think that the race for top 5 is getting very, very interesting, isn't it? Because Chelsea and Spurs were the two laughing points, really, because they're not in Europe. They clearly know the value of being back in Europe. And I certainly don't think Chelsea have spent £117 million to finish 6th. And I certainly don't think that Spurs have bought Tonali and Mateus Fernandes at the outlay they've paid to finish 6th. So I think the battle lines are being drawn for top 5. I think that's what this is all about. But you know, I mean, this is a huge signing. I'd say, I mean, well, it's definitely the biggest financial outlay of the summer transfer window, and I think Chelsea will get laughed at a lot for doing it. But it's still a very, very, very good player going to Chelsea that was maybe heading to Arsenal. So, you know, just be wary of that. It's a statement signing. I'm interested to see how he's going to fit in at Chelsea. But 1 game a week with look, the one thing I would say is, having experienced United only playing 1 game a week and not being in Europe, scoring goals is your best thing. Being able to score goals is your best thing. And it looks like Chelsea are looking at that. And they lack a bit of experience in that area. They haven't scored enough goals over recent years. So there we go. Get your comments in. Smash a like on the video. Make sure you're subscribing. Morgan Rogers to Chelsea for £117 million. It's the window that keeps surprising, isn't it? I'll speak to you on the next one. Take care.